Hey guys, Seth Fuller, your favorite lawyer here. Clay Jenkins, the county judge of Dallas, has sued Governor Greg Abbott. That's right, a Dallas County judge has sued the governor of Texas. I wanted to go over that lawsuit. It's not really a lawsuit, more of an injunction, but I just wanted to go over that with you, talk about the legal aspects of it. Now, this has been something brewing since the whole Shelley Luther shutting down the salon debacle, creating a monster by making an idiot a politician, another idiot a politician. But this has been brewing since then. I made a video about it and the constitutionality of lockdowns and mandates back then. Now, normally I'd tell you go back and look at that video and I'd post a link here. I'm not going to do that because I looked through that video myself in order to create this video, and that video is pretty terrible, boring, low quality. So don't bother. Just know the important part of that is I told you so, and I am always right. No, I'm kidding. But it was a video about that, and this has been brewing since then. These are the same sorts of issues, legal issues, constitutional issues that we've been dealing with since then. Now, I'll start out with an important caveat. Most of you, if you're the standard human being, are here to see whether I'm right or wrong based on whether I agree with you. In other words, if you're team mask and I say that the mask mandate is constitutional and Judge Clay Jenkins should win, then I'll be right and you'll celebrate me. And if you're team anti-vax and I say that none of this is constitutional, then you'll agree with me and I'll be right. If that's you, don't bother watching this. That's not what we're here for. I'm not political. I don't care about the politics. I care about the law. And I understand they clash here, but all I'm going to determine, I'm not going to make any value judgments as to any of this. I'm just going to bring up factual, legal arguments, and my opinion is not going to be on whether or not you should wear a mask. It's going to be on whether or not the laws in place for mask wearing are constitutional, are legal, whether they were properly put in place, that sort of thing. So if you're really interested in that sort of thing, this is the video for you. And please like, subscribe, and share, and I hope you enjoy it. So basically, this whole fiasco originated at a Dallas County Commissioners meeting in which Clay Jenkins, the Dallas County judge, now again, that's not a real judge, he's just in charge of all the administrative stuff, and he has some powers over the governance, and J.J. Koch, who's a Dallas County Commissioner, basically, they arrived at the meeting. J.J. Koch refused to wear a mask, and this happened.
The next resolution is now past 9:30. Commissioner Koch, you refuse to wear your mask in the room? Okay.
Yep, you do not have the authority under the governor's order. In fact, this morning, I went to Starbucks, and I have a mask. Okay. And if you did things the right way and weren't abusive of your power and very demeaning and unfortunately condescending to your board mates.
Certainly don't mean to be. Would you voluntarily join us in a virtual manner?
I don't think that's the appropriate thing to do. I don't think you have the authority to order me to do that.
I'm going to ask the bailiff now to clear the courtroom of people who refuse to wear their mask. And I only see one, and that would be Commissioner Koch. And Commissioner Koch, we can recess for a moment for you to reconnect with us because we don't want you to miss court. Sure. Bailiff, will you please escort Commissioner Koch to his office so that he can join us for court?
And so there it goes. Mr. Koch was removed and he filed this lawsuit. And this lawsuit basically states what he just said in that meeting, which is, you can't do that to me. And so he sues, and a lot of what he sues under is GA 38. Now, GA are the emergency orders promulgated by the Texas governor, Greg Abbott. And so basically we've had 38 of them now. and most of them override the other ones, but essentially they're just all the emergency orders to address the pandemic and COVID-19 and everything. So any lockdowns, any mask mandates, anything is covered under these GA orders. And this is the 38th one. And in that 38th one, it says in no uncertain terms that no government can prohibits any government entity, public health authority, and official from requiring face coverings other than in hospitals and jails. So this certainly would qualify as one of those meetings that he was kicked out of, and basically he's saying the county judge of Dallas County is required to follow the order of the governor of Texas, which is kind of begs the question, does he have to? And so we have to go back to the very beginning and where those powers come from to begin with. And to do that, I'm going to leave it up to one of my favorite YouTubers. This guy is smart, just well-read. He's a lawyer, and he's really intelligent and good-looking, and I'll let him explain it. So we go back to the Texas Disaster Act of 1975. And in it, Section 418-108 is a declaration of a local disaster. It gives the power from the governor. We're a giant state. The governor can't do everything. So it gives some of the power to the governor to the county judges. It's under subsection G. And it says the county judge or the mayor of a municipality may control ingress to and egress from a disaster area. And that's basically saying they can, in a disaster, they can keep people from coming in. So if it's a flooded area and you're worried about looters, you can block that off. And control the movement of persons. Now again, that's pretty loose, and you're getting to where, well, what does that mean? And then you get to the part that is directly tied to the salon and the occupancy of premises in that area. So here, under one statute, you go from a specific limited set of powers that everybody has to pretty much whatever they want to do. Control the movement of person. Control the occupancy of premises in that area. The question is, where are the limits of this constitutional exercise of power? Where does it cross the line to unconstitutional? Dangs. Speak your truth, Kang. Love that guy. So there you have it. Basically, the governor is allowed to declare disaster declaration, and he's allowed to make orders in order to protect the public based on that disaster. So in response, Clay Jenkins sues Greg Abbott. He kind of brings Greg Abbott in a lawsuit in the form of a restraining order against him for GA 38. GA 38 is Greg Abbott's order that businesses shall not require mask mandates. Basically his opening up order, which now we have a whole bunch of questions, some that are brand new, most that were sort of touched upon back when we were in the middle of the pandemic and Shelley Luther's salon was shut down. In that one, the governor won that argument with help of the Supreme Court, Texas Supreme Court, which basically anytime you hold somebody in jail, there's different standards, and just long story short, Greg Abbott won that argument. So here we are, same arguments that haven't been, same issues that haven't been covered by the Texas Supreme Court, and I'll try to go through those and give my opinions in regards to those. So the first main question is, were the mask mandates in regards to making business require masks and social distancing constitutional? And my answer, just like in the video, is that's undecided. I think it's constitutionally questionable, and I think that these lawsuits are going to hopefully submit that question to the Texas Supreme Court so that it can be answered once and for all. Is ingress, egress, and occupancy the power that was given to the county judges? Are the mask mandates covered under that? If so, they're constitutional. But that brings question number 2. What power does Greg Abbott have in regards to these things? Now, he definitely has the power to make laws in regards to like vaccine availability, suspending some laws of like that get in the way of people accessing healthcare, helping create networks that the hospitals can use to get people treatment, get people access to healthcare, access to vaccines, to make sure that they're sharing information. He has all sorts of powers, and those are almost all in the statewide government. But if you read the Disaster Act, the power of ingress, egress, and occupancy is reserved for the county judges. Of course, that's because that they can help. But the question is, when there's a clash there, who wins? And the answer is the governor should just basically declare the declaration of emergency, and then local emergencies are declared. And then that gives the power of the county judges, like Clay Jenkins, to enact laws of ingress, egress, and occupancy related to keeping people safe during this emergency. Now, so my answer to the question of whether or not Greg Abbott has the power to do those things is I believe that those were reserved for the county judges. So in that regard, if mask mandates and the occupancy mandates of masks and social distances are constitutional, which I think is a good question. I lean towards no, but I hope we'll find out soon. But if they are, then that power, in my opinion, according to the law, is reserved for the county judges like Clay Jenkins. So he kind of would win in that regard if the Texas Supreme Court agrees with me. However, I think we have to explore this further in regards to GA 38, the order that no government agencies can require masks. This is problematic. Here's why. Because the powers that were given to the governor were to help keep people safe. They're not general political powers to do anything that you feel is right and just and is constitutional. The constitutionality of it, the Constitution protects people already through that process. We don't need an additional process of emergency orders further protecting constitutional rights. That's not how it works. You would just not declare the emergency if you wanted the normal constitutional powers to be reserved. More importantly, in the order, in GA 38, it talks about that masks are recommended and are safe. So what power, what authority does any of these acts, any of the law give to Governor Abbott to say to people that you can't require masks? He said in previous orders that masks were requirable, that the law allows him and allows the county judges to require masks, and now he is using an unspecified power to say that they can no longer require them. And I think that's an issue. I don't think he can do that. And I think in that particular issue, Clay Jenkins wins. However, the original question brought by the original lawsuit is whether Clay Jenkins can require J.J. Koch to wear a mask during a meeting of the commissioner's courts. And what's funny is in that video, they cut to asking the legal question of the city attorney or the county attorney, and they have to cut that out because it's legal advice. But if they were to come to me, which they never would, I would have to answer that question that I don't see the authority for the county judge to require, without a specific order, the masks and the mask mandate. So there's two questions there. One, could Clay Jenkins reinstate the businesses? Could he reinstate the requirement that businesses require mask and social distancing and that sort of thing under the powers? That's the first question I ask. Is that constitutional? And again, assuming the answer is yes, which I don't think it necessarily is, but assuming that, can he do that just without an official order? Can he just say that in this hearing and make it happen? And I think this is where he's going to get in trouble, and this is why that first question I asked of whether the mask mandates and lockdown itself is constitutional is going to get answered, because there are rights that are more protected than others. Okay? Basically, your main constitutional rights, which are, among other things, a right to a freedom of speech and freedom to assemble, and the right to participate in government functions, okay, and to participate meaningfully in government functions. And by requiring a county commissioner to wear a mask during a hearing is certainly touches on all of those. Whether or not the access to virtual hearing is the same, whether or not it's it relieves or gives J.J. Koch the opportunity to exercise these rights in a meaningful way, is all really good questions. But more importantly, by really infringing on those rights, like when he ordered the arrest of Shelley Luther, these are issues that essentially have to be taken up. They have to be answered by the Texas Supreme Court. It's not just like they issued a ticket to somebody or something like that. This is in regards to some of the basic rights we have in governance. So here we are. The question of whether J.J. Koch has to wear a mask or have to go somewhere else during a government meeting is, my opinion, going to trigger all of the original questions that we have been putting off and maybe don't want the answers to, because they may not like the answers to that question. And here's where I'm going to get very unpopular, because I'm going to give you what I think is going to be an important part of the reasoning of the Texas Supreme Court in answering all of these questions. Behind all of this is the assumption that masks and social distancing and all of the things we're talking about are effective for reducing the virus. Why do I even bring that up? Well, essentially, you couldn't shut down stores. Let's say there was a flood and some stores weren't affected and people could get to them, and they have proper security. There's no chance of looting. They're in a good place. They're high on the high ground. People can still get to them, can still buy their goods and services. For the government to come in and say to that business owner, you can't open up because we've declared an emergency and that's here, I think that would bring a really good question, and they could sue, saying, no, there's no good reason. The restrictions on my freedom of shutting down my store have nothing to do with the emergency in question. We were never flooded. We were never even close to a flood area. There was no looting. There was no reason to shut down my store. I had nothing to do with the emergency order. Do not infringe upon my rights. And they would have a very good lawsuit, and I think they might win. This is analog here to especially the face masks, and then we'll talk about social distancing, and then we'll talk about the lockdowns. Actually, we'll do it the opposite. The lockdowns first. I think there's no doubt that telling businesses that they can't have in-person orders and can only do stuff remotely with safety protocols is absolutely would stand up to scrutiny by the courts. In other words, the lockdowns there's no doubt that disease cannot be transmitted between people who don't have any sort of, even through other means, any sort of contact. And so that's been decided, and the science is clear, and the random scientific experience we had of different places locking down at different times shows that indeed lockdowns work. So I'm sorry, I know some of y'all just had a brain aneurysm and now hate me and are shutting it off. That's fine. But there's no doubt about that in my opinion. 2, social distancing. And 3, the mask mandates are 2 separate things that were key to the county orders that were based on the governor's orders, but essentially these county orders that said that you can require mask wearing in your county. Well, so again, this is definitely infringing on people's rights, specifically the business owners, since they were the ones affected, and the order directly touches on them. And then the individuals, because of the requirements by the businesses. But we're not going to get into that part. Let's just talk about the businesses and whether they have to comply with this sort of thing. And again, this is going to make... I've now made everybody angry because I've said that the lockdowns were okay, but now I'm going to say that maybe mask wearing is not, because there's a good question. The research, don't take my word for it. This is by the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control, February 2021. This is a technical report from the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control, and I'm going to read directly from it. Evidence for the effectiveness of non-medical face masks, face shield visors, and respirators in the community is scarce and of very low certainty. Additional high-quality studies are needed to assess the relevance of the use of medical face masks in the COVID-19 pandemic. All of this discussion so far, I've assumed for the sake of these discussions that the face mask and the social distancing were effective in addressing the thing the emergency is supposed to address, which is the spread of COVID-19. However, does the wearing of masks actually help prevent the spread of COVID? So the question is the Supreme Court going to require some sort of prima facie showing that in infringing upon these rights, which we are all agreed is happening, they have to show a causal relationship. What is the standard that the government has to show in order to relate one thing to another? And finally, I'm going to address what a lot of you are saying, which is like, come on, the government is trying to keep us safe. These rules allow for very general, it's a general protection thing. So I don't know why you're tripping. Why not just, of course, the government can provide for the safety of people and make sure that people aren't spreading this disease. No, that's not. I understand that that's a very good thing, but you have to understand that, and I'm not going on, there are things that the government does that is bad, okay? Internment camps. We had internment camps here in the U.S. Now, I know that's an extreme example. Like, blow the whistle, too many Hitlers on the field. You're going too far, Seth. No. This is how we limit those things. This is how we prevent those from happening in the future. We specifically lay out the things the government beforehand, not while it's happening, because while it's happening, people will do anything. Like put people in internment camps who have no relation to the Japanese government, to the enemy government. But beforehand, when we're all thinking reasonably, rationally, and not scared, we put in place the limits of when things do hit the fan, what the government can do. And that is very important, and the Supreme Court is going to take that seriously. The Texas Supreme Court, and then maybe even the U.S. Supreme Court, because I think there's some questions there, are going to take this seriously. And we have to assume that they're going to look at each one of these elements and see whether or not. So don't be angry when they say that they didn't allow to do this. Here's the important part, though. I can almost guarantee you that after this is over, we are going to revise that communicable disease standard, and it's going to be based on politics. And we either are going to allow the government to do the lockdowns and to request mask mandates specifically in this law, or we're going to specifically prevent it. But I severely doubt the Texas legislature, after this thing is over, is not going to address either of these issues and kind of correct, whether you think it's correct or ruin, whatever your stance is, they are going to change this law to make sure that the next time we run into this, they're given the powers that the people want them to have, or that the people who pay them lots of money do wants them to have. That's a whole different discussion for a whole different day. However, after all this, I have to be clear, and this is not at the table right of this moment, but I think it will be. There is no doubt 100 years ago the Supreme Court ruled, and that still stands until anything changed. But as of this right now, if you look at the case law, vaccinations are 100% constitutional. I can go on and on about whether the law allows for masks, allows for even any infringement on citizens who are not infected's rights. However, I can not do that with vaccinations. Forced vaccinations are legal under the law right now, under this Communicable Disease Act, under the United States case law. There is no doubt that as of right now, they can start forcing people to get vaccinations, okay? So let's put that to rest. I'm not, again, I know it's made so many people mad. I'm just telling you the law that exists, not whether it's right or wrong, just the law that exists. If you don't like any of this, then go through whatever political process you think works. If you're a millionaire, hey man, definitely go through this and address it with your the proper your congressmen, your representatives, and say what you don't want to happen once this is over and what you do want to happen. Until then, I hope this has been informative, guys. I hope I kept it somewhat entertaining. If not, go watch Judge Ruby. This is playlists there. But thanks for your time. I hope you are staying well. I hope you're doing whatever it is you think is best for you. I hope you have a physician that you can consult and listen to and trust, so you don't have to believe Dr. Fauci or any of these YouTube videos or anybody, even the European European Center for Disease Prevention and Control, that you have a trusted physician. If you're not one, a trusted physician who can look at all these things and tell you what you should do or what you shouldn't do. I believe that if we don't get vaccinated, if everyone doesn't get vaccinated or at least have antibodies through natural vaccination, through having it before, they will shut us down. Again, this is not a judgment call. I'm just telling you that I believe it is coming if the hospitals continue to get overwhelmed, just like I said it was coming the first time. So stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, guys. Any comments you have, all your anger, whatever, put them down below in the comments, and I try to answer them. But have a good one.